And a very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. Happy April 2nd to you. Did you guys play a lot of old food tricks on your friends yesterday? Hope you didn't. Hope you didn't. Thanks a lot for joining us for today's edition of Good Day, Grenada. Let's take a look at the rundown real fast because we got a lot going on here. First off, is government betraying the values of school sport? One of the questions we're going to be answering here this morning, or at least attempting to, as we pursue the good governance agenda on Good Day Grenada. Oh, by the way, today, no national report. Hate to disappoint you guys, but nope, no report came in last night from the GIS. So, instead, we're going to be running you a segment which is captioned here, Taxpayers Dig Deeper to Pay for Government's Misdeeds. Yeah, that's an excerpt from Sunday's program. And of course, today, being Tuesday, Ray is going to be in here to get it off his chest. Spoke with him yesterday, and he said he's going to be here in person. No remote hookup this morning, so we're not going to be relying on the internet or lighting or whatever. It's going to be sitting right here next to me this morning. So let's get down to brass tacks. As I mentioned, we have a lot going this morning, so I don't want to waste too much time. All right? Now, is government betraying the values of school sport? This is a piece which was actually penned by Ray and published on Grenada Broadcast last night. So you may go on back after you listen to this today and check it out if you'd like some more detail. I quote, "The government investment is huge, really big, to ensure that its secondary schools' zonal parish games and the grand finale are of exceptional quality and standard. But is it at the cost of betraying the traditional values of school sports, which is for running the fastest time, throwing the furthest, and jumping the longest for the pride and glory of your school?" The announcement of the soca king of the world, Baby Killer, and other international artists performing at the final games at the Karani James Stadium will most definitely give it a different focus. The celebrity status of these international performers is sure to arouse the passion of the innocent boys and girls. An opportunity, as they say, to behave bad and have a good time. Undoubtedly, the key objective of the government is to create a magnificent spectacle of cheering fans, a grand charade to prove to the Grenadian people that the teachers' union members' work to rule had no impact on the government games. Personally, I am saddened that 2019 secondary schools athletic season was a huge failure and wished that the government and teachers could have settled this issue amicably. But that was not to be. The government's decision to ignore the teachers and stage their own games was a miscalculation. Yes, the government has the money and the resources, but without the volunteer participation of the teachers and supporting groups, the respective zonal games were going to be a disaster. Few athletes participated, many of them in no identifiable uniforms, and that took away from the usual image of school sports. And above all, significant a number of the competing athletes were obviously disinterested, making the respective zonal games a below par event. The politics of the day has undoubtedly taken all of the flavor out of track and field in 2019, and the repercussions could be felt in subsequent years. Also, it could impact on the star-studded Grenada Invitational Track Games scheduled for next weekend at the Karani James Stadium. It would be disappointing not to see a full house at the event. So the one man who could bring out the crowds, and more so the youth, is the king himself, Baby Killer. And the government is using that trump card to sell its games. Clearly, what our government and Ministry of Education are promoting as secondary school sport for children of all ages is now certain to be a hell of a school carnival and bacchanal at the stadium. And look at when that's being done. In the period of Lent, which leads to Easter, the most important Roman Catholic and Christian religious event. With a likely barrage of persons selling alcohol in vans and nearby shops in the vicinity, drinking heavily is a real possibility. And among the consequences, as the soca song says, pick up something and run, resulting in significant teenage pregnancies occurring, among other delinquent behaviors. Let us not ignore the fact that today's soca music is much about women and sex, and exploiters will take advantage of the unsuspecting. Parents are being shortchanged. Absolutely no need to have such entertainment in school sport. Many of the secondary schools participating in the games operate under the auspices of a religious denomination, and they all should object, and do so strongly to the government. The Conference of Churches in Grenada, the Seventh-day Conference of Churches, and Pentecostals have a duty to themselves to ensure that our nation's children are protected against abuses and exploitation. And they too must take issue with government and the Ministry of Education. The Muslim community observes their holy month of Ramadan, and for the period they show great respect and reverence. Government ought to take a page from their book. In summary, I feel sorry for the poor mothers who are out working and will not be there at the Karani James Stadium to protect their daughters from the generation of men who behave like hungry sharks, just waiting for that opportunity to prey on young girls. That, Pilgrims, is a piece which was written by Ray Roberts, and it was also published on the GrenadaBroadcast.com website just a few hours ago, last night. Reminder that we do not have a national report to you today. By the way, when Ray gets here, I'm pretty darn sure that what I just shared with you will be top of his agenda. He's coming in, should be here at about 9:30 or so. Okay? Now, let's take a look at Facebook. Hola, hola, Margaret. How are you, my friend? Nice to see you topping the list this morning. And Sharon is saying, good morning, Gigi and family. George, I will call you later. And we'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Yes, Sharon, we are looking forward with bated breath. By the way, I'm going to ask you guys to keep Sharon's sister in your prayers. She's going through a very difficult time. As a result, she had to zip off to Florida, I think it was Saturday morning, and she's not going to be here in person. But since she's saying that she's going to see us, I guess she's going to be doing it electronically on Zoom, okay? But please, Sharon loves a dear sister, and she is concerned. So not only is this a difficult time for her, but for her sister, but for her as well. All right. Who else is there? Fitzroy Adams saying good morning to you guys, and so is Aisha O'Blair Charles. Well, good morning, Miss Charles. Very kind of you to grace us with your presence this morning. And again, it was a pleasure seeing you down at the GrenSave event a few weeks ago, down at the Trade Center. Hope everything's going well with you. Peter Bishop doesn't tell us where he is this morning, but he's somewhere up there in the United States, I'm assuming. Anthony de Riggs says, good morning. Grenada is fast becoming a jump up and fet nation. Becoming, Anthony? Becoming? Oh, yeah. Fets. That's all that matters. Have a good time. Go ahead, folks. Go ahead. There is a day of reckoning ahead, and it ain't that far off. Edith Phillip is saying, good morning. What a shame. Yeah, I guess she's referring to what Ray referred to in his piece there a little while ago. Lincoln Roberts is saying, good morning. Hope you can all tell someone that you love them today because tomorrow is not promised. Amen, 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 Linky. Yes, sirree. Well, let me tell you guys something. I'm going to be the ringleader here, the cheerleader. I love you all. And I'm saying that just in case you haven't yet noticed. Okay? Can't wait to put on a golf shirt and shorts and come sit here every weekday morning with you guys, by God's grace. Fitzroy Adams says, George, I thought we were in Lent. So did I, Fitzroy. So did I. To our government, doesn't really matter. And, you know, I saw somewhere yesterday, I saw on Facebook, I think it was on Facebook, yeah, where somebody was asking the question, isn't this the same government where we had our prime minister speaking about the need to not sing or play calypsos in Lent? Wasn't that last year sometime? I don't remember, but I hope that jogs your memory. Okay. Now, so let's take a little break. And then, oh, by the way, I told you last week about a yard sale, which is being put on by Hubbard's. I think it started on Wednesday or Thursday of last week. Well, it's going to continue until tomorrow, April 3rd, Wednesday. You'll find up to 80% off on appliances, builder's hardware, tiles, etc., etc. And this is all taking place at the Hubbard's Old Motor Building down on the Carenage. Okay? So, let me take a little break here. Hold on. Hazel Ferguson is saying, good morning, watching you from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Well, Hazel, say hi to everybody in the USVI for us. I don't recall, could be wrong, don't recall seeing you before. But if you are a first-timer, welcome. And I'm sure that the gang here this morning, they join me in welcoming you and hope that we're going to be seeing lots of you. Spread the word around. Since we're saying spread the word around, do like Margaret also always says, share, like, do whatever you have to do to get the word out as we continue in our quest for good governance in Grenada. Break time.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. and we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenlec is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
GRENADA, energizing our Grenada.
Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us in Carriacou on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home. Welcome home.
All right, Hazel has responded to me here. Hazel Ferguson, she's saying that she wasn't here before, so she's not a newcomer. But in any event, Hazel, welcome to our new friend. Good to have you on board. Folks, it's 18 minutes after the hour. Now, here's what we're going to replace the NIS or the the GIS report with. Grenadian taxpayers now find themselves having to dig deeper into their pockets to pay for the misdeeds of their government. The courts have ruled against the Mitchell administration in favor of former Cabinet Secretary Gemma Bain Thomas, whom they deemed was wrongfully removed from her post, resulting in her entitlement to more than $700,000. This is in addition to millions more in court claims, which government began paying just this past week. On Sunday, Bain Thomas appeared on this week's edition of Sundays with George Grant and explained in detail how her entitlement came about. Gemma Bain Thomas.
In 1995, when the current Prime Minister became the Prime Minister of Grenada, I was working in the office of the Public Service Commission. And so my ascendancy to the level of Permanent Secretary was under his watch. The government changed in 2008, and I was still a Permanent Secretary. In 2009, I was appointed as the Cabinet Secretary. And then in 2013, for whatever reason, I was declared persona non grata,
As a permanent secretary?
Not as a permanent secretary, in the sense that the re-elected Prime Minister felt that he needed persons who he was more comfortable with within that space in the government.
Okay, let's get specific here. Dr. Mitchell wanted somebody he would be more comfortable with As a permanent secretary?
As the cabinet secretary.
As a cabinet secretary.
Yeah, after the election in February 2013, sorry, I was called to a meeting at the Prime Minister's residence at Happy Hill. At that meeting, there were 3 other permanent secretaries, the Prime Minister and myself, and we basically, I basically updated him on cabinet matters that we were handling, because it was a new government at that point in time. And the conclusion of the meeting, he indicated to me that it's a new administration and he wanted to be comfortable with the persons holding senior positions.
Did he give you any sort of indication why he may have been uncomfortable?
No.
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 All right. And when you were so advised, was that done in the presence of the other PSs?
No, it wasn't in the presence of the other PSs. When the meeting concluded, he asked the other 3 PSs to leave, and he spoke to me by myself.
Okay, great.
And he also would have spoken to the then chairperson of the Public Service Commission, because later that day, she telephoned me to say we needed to have a conversation. And the following day, we met, and she said that she would need to look for an assignment for me.
Okay.
And about 4 days later, I received a letter from the Public Service Commission where they granted me 14 working days leave of absence
from your post as?
From the post as cabinet secretary.
Right.
And within that time, I was expected to prepare terms of reference for an assignment.
Well, you had to prepare the terms of reference for an assignment.
Yes, they asked that I prepare the terms of reference. I responded and said I did not think I should be preparing the terms of reference, that it should be prepared and given to me. So at that time, I would have remained on administrative leave for the months of March, April, and May. And then in June of that year, I was assigned to the Department of Public Administration as Director of Public Sector Reform Initiatives. And from there on, we just went downhill. I indicated to the chairperson of the Public Service Commission that my assignment was to a lower post.
Right, I was just going to ask you that. Good.
Right.
Okay.
And my understanding of an assignment is that you remain in your substantive post, but you're assigned to do a particular function or duty for a period of time. But things came to a head when in November of 2013, I was informed after a management team meeting by the Prime Minister that he had a report that I was leaking information from his management team meetings. And I asked that the allegation be substantiated. He indicated that he had no smoking gun, but when you get these kind of report, it makes you concerned. And so he suggested that I should stop coming to the management team meetings. And at that time, I was also doing a master's program with SGU, that I should take some study leave and so forth. To fast forward, in February of 2014, the Public Service Commission would have sent me a letter. Well, I got 2 letters. One from the personal assistant to the Governor General, and one from the Chief Personnel Officer. The letter from the personal assistant to the Governor General said that the Governor General was transferring me to hold another post in grade M to be determined by the Public Service Commission. And then the letter from the Public Service Commission appointed me to the post of Executive Director in the Anti-Money Laundering Commission. So we determined that the fact that the Governor General transferred me to no specific post meant that I was removed or retired from the public service. And that was the basis of our legal arguments.
So you smelt a rat.
Yeah.
You smelt a rat.
Well, having worked in the public service, I worked in the Public Service Commission. I've been a senior public officer. I understand what is a transfer. And permanent secretaries are transferred to other permanent secretary posts. At the level of the Secretary to the Cabinet, you cannot move from a particular post to an ordinary post in the public service unless you have been retired from the first post and given a new appointment. So that was our conviction. And so we challenged it, saying that the transfer was in contravention of Section 85(2) of the Constitution of Grenada, where it says that appointment, transfer, removal of particular officers will be by the Governor General on the advice of the Public Service Commission. And so we said that these two letters did not constitute a transfer by the Governor General on the advice of the PSC, but a removal by the Governor General and an appointment to a new post by the Public Service Commission.
All right. Now, let's move into the courtroom. What's the case specifically that you took to the courtroom against the government of Grenada?
Specifically, we argued that the government contravened Section 85(2) of the Constitution in transferring me from a particular office post of Secretary to the Cabinet to an unestablished post created by an act of Parliament, but not a post in the public service.
Okay. Let's talk about how that case went.
So at the High Court, the first instance judge, he agreed that there was a contravention of the Constitution. His analysis was that the Governor General had to be advised by the Public Service Commission and the Governor General had to make the appointment. And that did not happen in my case. The High Court judge found himself in a dilemma. There was a case out of St. Vincent, Felix da Silva versus the Attorney General of St. Vincent, where the then acting Chief Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, in a similar case as mine, had ruled that the public officer was properly transferred. And so the judge felt that he was bound by that decision. So having ruled that the transfer was unconstitutional, but being bound by that decision, he gave an inconsistent conclusion and said that the net effect is that I'm on assignment as the executive director of the Anti-Money Laundering Commission. So I was still the Secretary of the Cabinet, but on assignment.
Okay.
We said that this is an inconsistent judgment, and that was the basis of us going to the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
So at the Court of Appeal, we argued that the judge was not bound by the Da Silva judgment because the facts in the two cases was distinguishable and that the judge had in fact made the distinction. That was our argument at Court of Appeal. The state's argument was that the cases were not distinguishable. The judge was bound to follow Felix da Silva, and that the two letters that were issued equated to one transaction, resulting in my lawful removal from the post of Secretary of the Cabinet and appointment as Executive Director. So the Court of Appeal ruled against the government. The Court of Appeal went on to overturn the Da Silva case because it said it was wrongly ruled on.
Okay. And as a result, compensation was due
Right.
out of this.
So the Court of Appeal, just to backtrack a little,
Sure.
we had also argued that I was compulsory retired based on Section 84(8) of the Constitution of Grenada. And when you are retired under 84(8) of the Constitution, you are to be paid your benefits as if you have attained the compulsory retirement age of 60. At the High Court, the judge said that 84(8) did not apply to my situation because the post I occupied was a post created by the Constitution, which could only be abolished by a referendum on the Constitution. So when we went to Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal agreed that Section 84(8) did not apply to my case. And so they say I was removed from office in an unconstitutional manner, and so we should agree on damages.
Okay. And the damages were?
The damages were based on a case from St. Kitts. Your emoluments until you reach compulsory retirement age, your gratuity and pension on attaining the compulsory retirement age, and vindicatory or general damages.
Okay. And I would imagine that did add up to a substantial amount.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Well, we did come to an agreement with the government on the special damages, the emoluments part. Now, based on the court judgment, the effective date of my removal from the service is 17 February 2014. That is the date that I was actually transferred by the PSC to the post of Executive Director.
Yeah.
Now, from 2014 to September 2017, when the Court of Appeal ruled, I reported at the Ministry of Legal Affairs and was paid my normal salaries. So, although the judgment is from 2014, the assumption is that you have already been paid all your salaries from 2014 up to 2017. And so the salaries due to me was from October 2018 until my 60th birthday. Which will be in 2025.
Okay.
Right. So we calculated all salaries that I'm supposed to get, allowances, and so forth, and it amounted to just over $600,000.
All right. Gemma, how much of that have you seen?
None as yet.
None as yet. No. When you say as yet, I'm
because I anticipate that the government
that
they will pay.
You're anticipating that.
But what has happened after the court judgment in September 2017, they paid me up to July of 2018. Then they removed me from the payroll. So as of August of 2018, I have not received any salaries or so from the government. Notwithstanding, they have to pay me until I reach 60. In October of 2018, we signed an agreement. The Attorney General, myself, my lawyer, we signed an agreement that covers all the emoluments, and it deducts the income tax and so that I would have to pay up to age 60. So we have that agreement. That agreement was entered into the court as a consent order. So there's a court judgment for that. As different to the vindicatory judgment that we received about last week.
Hello. Yeah, he's here. He's here. I'm a little bit preoccupied talking with my buddy Ray Roberts. Ray is with us, and he is going to have to exit very shortly because he does have a meeting to attend to. So, rather than going to a break here, what I'm going to do right now is bring Mr. Roberts in. And hold on a sec here. Why isn't this working? Ah, there it is. Take a look. There he is. Good morning, Mr. Roberts, and how are you, sir?
Well, it's a wonderful morning. It's some good showers, I would say. Not much, but enough to...
You had rain this morning?
A little bit down Caddy side.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pool. I would say several pools of water. Not much. But you know, there are many holes in the road. So
It ain't difficult to have a pool in this place.
That's right.
Ray, listen, I know you got to scoot early this morning. I don't want to tie you up. So let's get right down to brass tacks. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do, bung away, as we continue in our quest for good governance. And in the event that you don't touch on everything, I got some stuff for you. Shoot.
Good. Well, George, this week climaxes the, I call it the government games. Friday, yes, I think it's Friday. Saturday is the private primary schools games at the stadium. And I have followed the build-up to it, mainly on Facebook and on television, actually. Really have not spent any time going to any of the games.
Okay.
But I've seen enough, actually, and I've had, friends, coaches there. St. George's was an utter disaster. There weren't 100 athletes there, and those were the people who officiated, gave me the stats. St. John's and St. Andrew, well, they didn't have 200 athletes, actually, but it looked a little better because there were some spectators. I am not too sure about Carriacou. I spoke to someone, but I would prefer not take that kind of information. I have my reason, right? But overall, I would say it's nothing that we have had in the past compared with the build-up to Intercall, SAS Sports, McDonald College, GBSS, High School, Convent, Wesley College, St. John's and St. Rose and St. Mark and all the others, the two schools in Carriacou, St. David's. So really and truly, you have not had the participation and the fervor, enthusiasm that normally comes along with secondary school.
I've been hearing
sports.
about that, yeah.
Right. So I have described it as a disaster for athletics in 2019. Nevertheless, what for me is a betrayal of the traditional values of track and field for school children is the climax. I must say that I have admiration, and I want to congratulate Baby Killer and all the other fellas who are going to be singing there. And my issue is not with them because they did not bring themselves. Somebody had to invite them. I think to me, it is a betrayal of what school sports is about. Because remember, you're going to have children of all ages. The focus is not going to be in athletics. These fellas are a celebrity in a Grenada and Caribbean context. Yeah. And the behavior of our population these days. I mean, the artists are going to be singing, and I don't know that many of them exclude women and sex, pick up something and run or whatever it is, and the connotation is there. So quite clearly there'll be very little emphasis on sports. And I think having the focus sports, I think we have focused them on the wrong thing at the wrong time. Because whether you're Christian, you're Obia, you're Baptist, you're Rasta, Lent is a period where we could use it for many other things. But most importantly, as a nation, Catholicism is the biggest of all the groups. And I born and you born and meet it too. So to have this kind of activity in the middle of Lent, I don't know, and particularly for children, I think we're sending the wrong message. So for me, George, I think the government really has let me down and has deceived, to me, the parents, and more so the Christian schools, because most of our secondary schools, convent has a name, G.W. Fletcher, St. Andrew Anglican Secondary School, MacDonald College is part of the Presbyterian community. So to have that kind of atmosphere there, I think it's really abominable. And let me just touch on one other thing, George. There are parents who are going to be working, particularly parents in the hotel and service sector. Yeah. So they will not be able to monitor their children. Yeah. And you know some of the men we have out there, they are worse than hungry sharks. Yeah. And I could see at the end of it, 9 months later, the result of juvenile delinquency behavior and men preying on the unsuspecting. So I don't know what, except the government will say there was a big crowd and show it on television repeatedly. And I don't know what good does that for Grenada. Yeah. So that's my piece.
Well, that's your piece. And there's a note here from Pele Darbo. Mm-hmm. Pele says primary school sports is on the 4th, secondary school sports is on the 5th. Pure Grenada Cup is on the 6th.
Yeah, that's football. And the following weekend you have Grenada Internationals. So okay. Yeah, that's on the 13th.
And Dennis Clark says, Ray, the soca artists or artiste should be asked by their fans to stay away from the NNP political.
Well, I would not call the party name. I call it the government name. Because the Ministry of Education that is organizing that event. So it's the government of Grenada that is doing a grave injustice to me in particular, the parents who are going to be working and certainly will not be able to supervise their boy or girl. In fact, they wouldn't be able to come there. So it's an opportunity to do as much as you want. And George, I can talk to you about that. There are going to be dozens of little vans and cars with beers, alcohol in the back of it, selling to whoever wish. Forget the law. Nobody bothers with the law. They're going to sell to a baby if the baby talk. And then there are the rum shops and shops around that are not going to spare anyone. Everybody's going to pick up whatever comes their way. Mm-hmm. So again, I don't know that is what we want. I know that even though you had in the court, you may have the same thing. But for the state to be promoting that, I think it's madness.
You're a dear friend, Margaret.
Tell me.
Tell me. Yeah. Margaret, tell me.
Yeah.
Margaret says, Sir Ray, you are saying that because Catholics are the biggest religious group, everyone else should be subject to their beliefs and practices?
Irrelevant, totally irrelevant. I live in a community, they are Muslims, and I respect them. I'm not subjected to their belief, but I have respect for them. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about any religion. I said it very clearly, that there are multiplicity of them. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they observe it, I would not, do anything to create animosity.
Well, you just answered the question. Yeah. Her next question, she's asking, is Grenada a theocracy?
I don't know anything about these things, such huge words. I don't know. All I can tell you, I believe in a civil society. I believe we must exist and coexist. I don't know that, we need any form of you versus me. I mean, the Grenada International, I may have some views on it, but it's good to see the superstars. It may be costly, but I think it could it could help sports in some way. But I have some views. I would have loved to see that money be invested in Whitsuntide Games, which is a local product, and twin it into an international product.
Okay.
But, I try to avoid these things because, the minute time you get into the... I have friends who come by me and have a different views of how I should do my thing. But I'm in cordial relationship with everybody. There's in fact, in the South, there are 27 different churches down South St. George.
27?
27.
Boy.
Yeah.
When you look
I will go to all.
When you look at our behavior as a people, and that's just in the South, right?
That's correct.
When you look at our people, you have to ask yourself whether or not there are churches.
Well, I quite agree with you. I quite agree with you.
Dennis Clark says here, the Conference of Churches should condemn the soca show in the middle of Lent.
Well, what I would do if I were part of the Conference of Churches, I would secretly or privately call on the Prime Minister to give it a second thought, because he says we should tone down calypsos in Lent, and he's a big practicing Catholic, takes communion every Sunday and so forth. So I would think the bishop should have a word with him. Not just the bishop, I think the Christian community. I mean, let's put it this way. First of all, these guys have no right in Queen's Park to perform. This is a children activity, school children activity. In the pure Grenada football, it's most appropriate. And I'm sure Chenny and Waggity going to have that, whether it's Lent or not Lent, and I'm not going to comment on it. Because it's big men like me and you, and big women like Margaret are going to be there. So we are responsible for our behavior. But we send our, let's say George, we send our 10-year grandson or granddaughter down in the park. And these men we know that we have around these days, abuse, come on. So that's not necessary, and that's my debate. It's a children activity, and poor people's children are going to be the ones who are going to be affected the most. The people who are well-to-do are going to be there with their car to pick up their children at 5.
All right, let me, before we go any further, let me issue a little correction here. Margaret is not a big woman. Margaret is a twig.
Okay.
You know Margaret?
Yeah.
Twig.
All right.
Okay, Margaret. Now, Laurie Bridgman says, yes, Ray, you are so right. They will kill sports like they killed agriculture.
Well, I would think so. In 2019, that's what they have done, because the government staging of games, that's not necessary. The Athletic Association, they had their championship. I would have offered them the opportunity of funds to make it bigger, get the schools involved, and I'm sure they would have invited the minister to declare it open. But to have done your own games, to ignore the fact, I mean, whether we like it or not, money cannot bring success by itself. You must have the word volunteers. You must have that word involved. I mean, big United States politics, Trump will tell you he has hundreds of volunteers, because it takes a certain spirit to get certain things done. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a piece written by one of the principals, says, even though it's a government stadium, the teachers union pays $7,000 to use it and to prepare the facility, $7,000. So she was saying next year, maybe the teachers union should keep that money and help maybe teachers and kids. Mm-hmm. So really and truly, I'm saying, you go out there to raise money to pay for a government facility, and the government takes it. So,
all right, you know, this is just one area in which we see things just sliding away down a path which doesn't leave too many Grenadians happy. But the longest rope has an end. No, Margaret answers, she says, yeah, George, tell him. Okay.
Well, my brother, the one thing I would say that I wish more people can be active, and people who go to these meetings with the minister and the government ought to speak with them. I think we need a lot more Sandra Fergusons in the country who, whether you like it or not, will say it based on the evidence she has. I mean, we all collect data, and we all may have a different usage for data, but that's one person I admire. It does not hold back. And you can grow with people like that. Because I'm sure the parents who have sat with the minister and planned those games they had, those games, I would say, that they damn well know that the consequences of the games on the 5th, it's going to have a repercussion down the line.
Yeah.
Teenage pregnancy, all sorts of problems will emerge. I mean, I've known games like these, whenever it is, whether it's run by athletics association or the principals, you do find incidents that 10, 15 years later, it's just a burden on society.
This is just one more thing to add to the list. You know, when I sit in this chair, I have so many people either come here to see me in person or talk to me by phone or email or whatever. And everybody, without doubt, without any exception, people are saying, boy, I really don't like the way this country is heading. I really don't like where we're going. There's an unease there. And Ray, it scares me because at some point, it's going to burst.
Yeah,
Now,
well, the whole thing is money, as I said, because you look at some of the professionals who are behaving, who are quiet. I mean, it's just some of them are selling passports, some of them are getting big contracts to do nothing, some of them are pilfering from the state, I mean, and maybe economically, I don't know if they're doing well. I don't want to do any better than I'm doing right now.
okay.
I just want to have the best health that I could enjoy. But I think that is the crux of the whole thing. There's no neighborly love and, the civil society that we grew up in. Money has, intruded, and some of us have seen it as the new God.
Fitzroy Adams says this government rarely studies the majority in Grenada. This is why they won 15 seats. Bite me today and tell me how much you love me tomorrow. So says Fitzroy.
Well, again, if people are focusing on, let's put it this way, whether or not things we do have merit, and then we will make decisions based on principle. But, I mean, you imagine a society sits there and you've been looking for oil how long now? Because you're reading the news. And there isn't any substantial information, and people still buy into that cat and bag.
They still buy into it.
That's correct.
All right, Ray, listen, one last question, because I know you got to run. But I want to hear your reaction, your views on the teachers refusing to correct the SBAs.
Well, I don't know that they're refusing. I think what the discussion should be, and I said it from the very start, I have spoken, well, in fact, every day I'm engaging teachers, primary, secondary, private, whatever. And I know some of them are doing it. In fact, all of them are doing it. What they are not doing, and that's my understanding, is handing it in. I mean, I'm in conversation with one, actually, who does physical education. Says she's almost through. But the point I think we're missing, why aren't we calling on the government to behave in a civil manner? This is not in the Middle East, where Shiite and Sunni are battling over what turf. This is a different society. The state must recognize, and I think that's where we are failing as a people. I mean, the conference of churches, my dear conference of churches. I mean, I can't understand how people like Reverend James, and I hope the bishop is not part of that, and others could sit around a table and put out a release of that nature, and ignoring the behavior of the state itself, the government itself. I mean, when I was much younger, I remember Hoskin Huggins. I think he was in charge of the Methodist or the Anglican, whatever, I think the Anglican. And they were taking issues with Gary over civil issues. They were not afraid to talk, and they were not afraid to hit on both sides. What we see in there is that the state must recognize that the teachers have a burning issue, not to stage another games and to get people to come out and say, these are innocent children. I understand they are innocent children, and I have family members who are there. But I'm saying the state must make it a responsibility to say to the teachers, look, we're going to treat you your issue. Not everything is going to be your way. But to me, the state is refusing. The Prime Minister says it's 2% and 8%. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about laws that were established in 1958 because your interpretation is this way. People tell us we must follow what? Follow a blind man? No. I am calling on the state itself to take the initiative, to say to the teachers, let's sit around the table. We both will have to compromise. But this Bajan thing that we say in innocent children, everybody is innocent. So let's pick on both sides to come out there and use whatever wisdom they may have. And that, to me, will bring that issue to an end. But the teachers are not refusing. I can tell you that. They are, all who I've met said to me they're doing it. But there's an end game, which is to hand it in. I don't know when the end game, what that end game will mean. But I know all. I had one with me Sunday, for talking for hours. Says, "We are leaving, I'm going to do my students SBAs." But the handing in is what is the challenge.
Okay. All right, Ray, I know you got to run. Just let me read two comments here. Roger R. Augustine says, in the matter of the government of Grenada versus the teachers and public servants, where are our children, the future generation of this country? Oh, boy. Please, people, please, take your time and write properly, please. In the matter of the government of Grenada versus the teachers and public servants, wherein our children, the future generation of this country, is affected, I think that should be are affected the most by the decisions of the aforementioned custodians, I want to consider King Solomon's approach to resolving the matter of the two mothers. Actions speak louder than words, and in so saying, if you love your children and want the best for them, it is time to act as leaders and inspire, not divide and destroy, because of our selfish pride, believing you're trying to teach anyone a lesson. If we want a better Grenada, we must fix this now, not tomorrow. A word to the wise is sufficient. Praise God for his mercy. Dennis Clark says, the church must always take the side of the oppressed and the downtrodden. Ray, there is no table. There is no table. The matter is before the court. Help us. Kipling says, still don't understand why people are afraid to say the government as well as the churches all suck. The truth needs no defense, so says Kipling. Thanks a lot, Ray. Go have your meeting, and by God's grace, boy, we'll see you again next week.
George, have a wonderful day, and to all your listeners and viewers, God's blessings.
God bless you too, buddy. Okie doke, folks. On that note, we're going to say bye to Ray. Let me see, what else do we have here? That's it on Facebook for the time being. Let me take a little break and we will come back.
Grenadian General Insurance Company, strength and stability. Grenadian General Insurance Company, tell your friends, tell your family. We cover householders comprehensive, motor and even fire too. Contractors all risk burglary, public liability, professional indemnity, directors liability, and wait, we still have more. Come and find out more what you're waiting for.
We are located on Scott Street, St. George's. For more information, call 440-2434.
Tell everybody.
Start the stride to a healthy lifestyle at the 2019 annual Pump It Up Family Fun Walk. There'll be more fun, more smiles, and more prizes for families and friends. Join us at Carrickoo on April 7th at 4 p.m. as we walk from the Harveyvale playing field to the Hillsborough tennis courts, and in Grenada on April 28th at 4 p.m. from the Montrouge playing field to the National Cricket Stadium. Packages cost $20 per person for up to 2 individuals and $15 per person for groups of 3 or more. Come out in your numbers to help us raise funds towards re-establishing the Carlton Home.
Welcome home.
Juve Juve chocolates, cocoa nibs, and cocoa balls from Diamond Estate Grenada are now available at Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, Amazon.co.uk, and GrenadaMarket.com. Try the sensational touch of nutmeg and a touch of ginger chocolates, 75% dark and rich, 100% pure cocoa, and their 60% dark and sweet chocolate bars today. Amazon Prime members enjoy free shipping on these orders in the USA, Canada, and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Alrighty, folks, time to pull the curtain down. How time flies when you're having fun. Hey, hey, hey. Parting word today comes to you from Joel, chapter 2. Just 2 verses, 12 and 13. Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your hearts and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. Joel chapter 2, 12 and 13. Pilgrims, that's going to do it for Georgie Porgy this morning. Thank you all for joining us for today's edition of Good Day Grenada. I hope you have a great week, the rest of it, and join us again on Sunday morning for the next edition of Sundays. But by the way, boy, Sunday morning looks like we have, I don't know we're on a streak. We have another scorcher for you on Sunday morning. Yeah. And this one has to do with the National Democratic Congress. Yeah. Gotta go. God bless you, and we'll see you again tomorrow.